Game started.
Okay, we got another game against Renouf, USA. It's time for E4. I tried C4 last game. That was a horrible game, so I'm not uploading it. I won actually, but it was totally undeserved. This is the Philidor defense. So the Philidor defense has a reputation of being somewhat passive, but there are interesting ways to play it. One thing is that black gets this diagonal here. Where sometimes you can push the pawn to g6 and put the bishop on g7 there, or it looks like maybe the bishop is just heading to f6 and put pressure on the center, which he cleared out with that exchange. What do I want to do? I think just develop a knight, defend this pawn before it becomes a subject of attack, and then line up the bishop here. This knight is loose now, but it's not under pressure, and sometimes there's nice tactics with pushing the pawn here. I'm going to go ahead and castle. And so this bishop, it looks odd here behind a pawn, but as long as I'm able to push this pawn forward, the bishop has some life. I might want to do that now, do I? I mean, it's a pawn sack. I guess it's not good. Not a good pawn sack. It's interesting that when this knight went here to d7, it covered up the bishop, so that gives me the possibility of playing knight to f5. And I kind of like that idea. It hits this bishop here, which is technically a bad bishop, but that bishop can come to life later, and if I just grab it now, I will have the bishop pair. So let's retreat my bishop and save it. Right, and he can take my knight. Okay, well, I got the bishop pair. And he's going to go after my pawn. Let's see, do I want to save that pawn? Can this pawn be saved? Let's see, if I play the crazy move, pawn to g4, knight takes, bishop takes, knight takes, queen takes, I can save that pawn, but it'll make kind of a mess of things. Yeah, and if I put my bishop on this square, the knight can just take it. Well, let's hold on to the pawn for a little bit. I'd rather keep that pawn than give it up for nothing. And let's see, get my dark squared bishop something to do. And so, yes, I've got doubled pawns, but I do have an open file here. And, yep, you can pin my knight and take it. Now, this gives me a choice. I can take with the queen and give up this pawn, or I can take with a pawn and have doubled pawns over here. But I'm going to use these pawns to attack, so I expect to kind of dissolve these pawns over here. Let's see, where does the knight go? I'm going to kick the knight because it's blocking the defense of that pawn. And where can it go? It can go here, 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 here. Better back to where it was. That's an interesting square. It might go there. Oh, I went back to where it was. Okay, so now I'm just going to try and dissolve these pawns over here on the queen side. If he takes back with the queen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my queen to the side. Oh, he takes back. He blocks with the knight. That's a bad move, isn't it? I can attack the knight. He can take the bishop. I take the queen. Can he move the knight with check? So let's follow this through. Pawn to c4, knight takes, bishop f4, queen takes, queen. rook takes queen, rook takes rook. So that wins a rook and he wins a bishop. I think that should be good for me. Now I can defend the queen, right? Okay, so if he defends the queen, now I can step aside with my queen. Where do I want to go? So if I move the queen somewhere, I want to defend this rook. So this square, this square, this square. I think simply here. Chases his queen off of that diagonal. Now I can chase his knight away, but the knight will just come back to this square. I have the idea of the bishop to c7, and the idea of pushing the pawn to f4, f5, f6. So let's see, pawn f6, and if he takes it, then bishop to h6. Looks like an interesting idea. Then I'll try and get my queen over, maybe via this square to so queen to f2 to g3. So he takes there first. Since I can't take the pawn with check, I'm going to take back right away. So that kind of weakens his king side to just leave the pawn there. Let's try. So simple idea of queen to h4 to h6 and checkmate. And he can defend it with the queen. And so queen h4 defends the bishop, defends the pawn. And what is he going to play? He's going to bring his queen maybe to h5 here to block my queen. I could trade, and then he has doubled pawns over here. We have compensating weaknesses, and rook and bishop versus rook and knight. Still, it's probably my best, unless there's another way to, yeah, there's not a way to hold on to everything. He's kind of forking the bishop and the pawn here. He can play his queen to here check. Ah, it goes there. Let's see, how about play bishop to g5 with the idea of following up with g4 here and breaking down these pawns and letting him letting him win that pawn, which I didn't actually think about. Yeah, so now if queen takes knight, queen takes bishop. That's probably good for black. So keep the bishop, kick the queen. I have to be careful. So the queen has this check here, and if I move my king forward, there's a knight there. Take. And let's see other ideas. After the queen check, if I go to the corner, then there's no immediate threat. I think I want to do this. I need to get something going against his king here. I mean, I think that's the best way to get an advantage in this game. I have already sacked a pawn, actually, so yeah, I need to get something. That's right. Takes there. Okay. hits my rook. That's too bad. So let's see. I can go here and attack his queen. He can check along this diagonal. No, he can't. Okay, so let's attack his queen.
Check.
Ah, yeah, he gets that check. I have to take because if I move my king, I just, well, I just don't have anything. Now at least I have this fork here. So it's rook and bishop versus rook and knight. And he's got the extra pawns. Yeah, it looks like he's mopping up here. Yeah, he can move his knight with check. So let me move my king out of check, and then I can think about harassing his knight. If I move the bishop to f4 right away, trying to win the knight, then this knight to f3 check wins my rook because of his rook. So he moves his rook to where it's defended. So now this knight is not pinned exactly. So if I attack the knight can move away. And probably should. I go forward one square first. So maybe after the knight moves away, I can mop up a pawn or two here. Improve my chances in the endgame. So he goes there. So I can take right away and take this pawn. Or I can keep the pieces on. I guess it's more interesting to keep the pieces on for me. It's when you have a losing endgame, you don't want to get down to just pawns because the guy will mop up. The pawn ending will be decisive. So you got to keep the pieces on and keep playing. And I do have some ideas. I could play, for example, rook to e4, d4, threatening to go to d8, check, drive his king to this square. It's too bad. Yeah, let's see. Now the knight can go there with check. Always got to watch those checks. Let's step out of the way of that. So what I'm thinking is if I can get my bishop to that square, then I have a mating idea of check here and checkmate there with the rook. So if he goes after that pawn, I want to defend it for now. Let's see. So he's got a check here, but that just hits the king. It doesn't hit any of my other pieces. So I can get out of that just by moving the king. Right. Now, can I creep forward somehow? Yeah, the problem is don't have many good moves here. I'm going to try and create an avenue for my king to get into the position, so I couldn't go directly to this square. Well, I could, but if I put my king here and my pawn here, he has this knight move check, and I have to move away. So that's an interesting idea. He's going to bring his king into the position. So I'll just set up this discovered check here. Not that it's worth anything. His pieces are all on right squares. Ah, forgot about that. Yeah, you gotta watch for those checks all the time. Let's see, check here. Should win. That might win too.
Check.
I'm going to resign at this point.
White resigns.
Okay, I'm going to post this. I think it's a terrible game, but you got to take your lumps. And I'll post some, do a post-mortem. And see you guys. Thanks.